I'm not coming back. I've met someone better and already moved your things to storage. My name is Leonard Kessler, 54 years old and staring at my phone in the kitchen of our Des Moines condo at 11:42 p.m. on a Thursday. My wife Dana was supposed to be on day 4 of a girls' trip to Palm Springs. The text came with a screenshot of a bank transfer. $118,000 moved from our joint savings to her personal account. I set my phone down and finished my coffee. 15 years of marriage ended in 2 sentences and a screenshot. For months there had been signs, weekend getaways that stretched longer, new clothes she never wore around me, phone calls that stopped when I entered a room. I noticed it all. I'm a forensic accountant. Noticing discrepancies is what I do for a living. But I said nothing. Maybe that was my first mistake. Or maybe my first mistake was marrying someone who thought my career was just spreadsheets and boring numbers. I opened my laptop and checked one of my email accounts, one Dana didn't know existed. 3 notifications from my bank's security system. Someone had attempted to change passwords on accounts Dana had never seen. She was being thorough. I had to respect that. I picked up my phone and typed 2 words in response: good luck. Then I called my brother Jason. Remember that contingency plan we discussed 5 years ago? I said when he answered. It's time. Are you sure? He asked. Yes, I replied. She just made her move. I hung up and glanced at the wedding photo on the wall. It was the only picture in the condo that still had both of us in it. I should have noticed that too. I met Dana Bowman at an alumni event for the University of Iowa. I was 38, recently divorced from a short first marriage, and focused entirely on building my forensic accounting practice. Dana was 34, vibrant, ambitious, and completely uninterested in what I did for a living. I don't need to understand the details, she'd say whenever I tried to explain a case. As long as you make enough for us to live well. We married after a year of dating. I helped her open her yoga studio, funding the entire venture from my savings. When she wanted a bigger house and a better neighborhood, I agreed. When she wanted luxury cars and expensive vacations, I nodded and signed the checks. My father had warned me once. We were fixing his deck and he paused, hammer in hand. Son, I notice your wife spends a lot of your money, he said carefully. Just make sure she values what you do to earn it. I brushed him off, but the comment stuck with me. 6 years into our marriage, I began quietly restructuring my assets. Nothing illegal, just protective. I created 2 limited liability companies, established trusts, invested in crypto, and maintained offshore accounts for international clients. Dana knew about our joint checking and savings, but nothing else. I watched as she became increasingly involved in fitness influencer circles. Her Instagram followers grew into the thousands. She started taking trips with her wellness community. First weekends, then full weeks. You wouldn't enjoy it, she'd say. It's all yoga talk and juice cleanses. Last Christmas, she forgot my birthday. When I mentioned it the next day, she bought me an expensive watch and said, I've just been so busy with the studio expansion. I accepted the watch, but that night, I finalized the paperwork on my contingency plan. The signs were all there. I just didn't want to see the full picture. The morning after her text, I woke up early and made coffee, same as always. Habits are hard to break, even when your world has collapsed. I logged into my primary financial management system, custom-built for my practice but adapted for personal use. With a few keystrokes, I activated the contingency protocol Jason and I had designed years earlier. First, I froze all joint accounts and credit cards. Then I triggered a fraud alert on the $118,000 transfer, using my banking contacts to expedite the process. I sent documentation proving financial misconduct to my attorney, along with instructions to file for divorce immediately. Then I called my mother. Dana's left me, I said simply. She took the money and moved my things out while she was supposedly on vacation. My mother was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, Leonard, she finally said, but I can't say I'm surprised. What are you going to do? What I've been preparing to do for years, I replied. Protect what's mine. An hour later, my phone lit up with Dana's name. I declined the call. 10 more calls followed, then a text. What the hell did you do? The money's gone and my cards don't work. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to the storage facility listed in her text. Using the code she'd sent, I retrieved 2 boxes of my clothes and my laptop. The rest of my belongings, family photos, books, mementos from my father, were nowhere to be found. That's when something hardened in me. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about 15 years discarded without a second thought. It was about someone thinking they could erase me from my own life. I stopped at a coffee shop and opened my laptop. Using financial databases only available to licensed investigators, I pulled up everything I could find on Trey Harmon, the fitness influencer Dana had been tagging in photos for months. The someone better she'd mentioned. What I found confirmed my suspicions. Trey's gym business was leveraged to the hilt. 3 maxed-out business credit cards, a lease he couldn't afford, and Dana had already co-signed on a car loan with him 2 months earlier. I closed my laptop and drove to a hotel. For the first time in years, I felt completely clear about what needed to be done. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. Monday morning, I walked into my office as if nothing had happened. My assistant Valerie looked up, surprised. "Leonard, I thought you'd be taking time off. Dana called here 3 times already." "Did she?" I said. Not a question. She sounded upset, said there was a misunderstanding with your accounts and needed to reach you urgently. I nodded. "If she calls again, tell her to contact my attorney." By noon, Dana had escalated from calls to appearing in person. The receptionist buzzed my office. "Your wife is here, she's quite insistent." I sighed and walked to the lobby. Dana stood there, designer sunglasses pushed back on her head, yoga clothes perfectly coordinated. She smiled when she saw me, the same smile she'd used for 15 years when she wanted something. "Leonard, there's been a huge misunderstanding with the bank," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "All our accounts are frozen." "Not a misunderstanding," I said quietly. "You transferred money without authorization. The bank flagged it as fraud." Her smile faltered. "It was our joint account. I'm your wife. You're my soon-to-be ex-wife who emptied our savings while informing me you'd moved out and found someone new. That's textbook financial misconduct." Her voice dropped to a hiss. "You cannot do this to me. I've already put deposits down on a new place. I've made commitments." "To Trey Harmon?" "Yes, I know all about those commitments." Her face went white. "You're investigating me?" "Number just protecting myself from fraud." "I'll fight this," she snapped. "I deserve half of everything." I looked at her evenly. "Half of what's in those accounts, sure, but you seem to be under the impression that's all there is." She blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "You'll find out in discovery," I said, then turned and walked back to my office. That afternoon, I received an email from Dana's newly hired attorney demanding immediate access to all financial records and threatening to expose irregularities in my accounting practice if I didn't comply. It was an amateur move, a threat with no substance behind it. I forwarded it to my attorney with one line: "Proceed as planned." By evening, Dana had rallied mutual friends to her side. My phone filled with messages asking why I was being vindictive and controlling. No one had questioned where she'd been the past week or who she'd been with. No one asked about the money she'd taken. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I went to the gym, not Dana's studio or Trey's flashy fitness center, but the small community center where I'd been going for years. I lifted weights until my arms shook, then drove back to my hotel room. The trap was closing, but not around me. 3 days later, my attorney called. "We found something interesting," she said. "Dana's been siphoning money from your joint account for over a year. Small transfers at first, then larger ones." "To where?" I asked, though I already knew. "Multiple accounts. Some to her personal savings, but most to a business LLC registered to Trey Harmon. Almost $80,000 total. And she used our joint funds as the source." "Yes, which means we can add financial infidelity to the divorce filing." I thanked her and hung up. I wasn't surprised, but confirmation still felt like a punch to the gut. Dana hadn't just left me for someone else. She'd been planning it for over a year, funding her exit and her new boyfriend's business with my money. That night, I received a text from an unknown number. "You need to back off. Dana deserves better than you. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be." Trey Harmon, getting involved directly. Interesting. I drove to my brother's house the next morning. Jason worked in digital security, the perfect complement to my financial expertise. We'd collaborated on cases before, but this was different. I need everything you can find on Harmon Fitness LLC, I told him. Bank records, loans, credit applications, everything. Jason raised an eyebrow. Legal channels only, right? Of course, we're just connecting public dots faster than most people could. 3 hours later, we had our answer. Trey Harmon wasn't just in debt, he was underwater. His social media portrayed success, but his business was failing. The new equipment, the expansion, the promotional events, all funded through risky loans and, more recently, Dana's investments. But there was something else, something Dana couldn't have known. Look at this, Jason said, pointing to his screen. Harmon applied for a small business loan 4 months ago, used the gym equipment as collateral. That's normal, I said. Yeah, but look who co-signed. I leaned forward. The document showed Dana's signature on a $175,000 equipment loan. She co-signed before she left you, Jason said quietly. But here's the kicker. The loan specifies joint responsibility with her spouse. They used your marital status to secure better terms. I stared at the screen. She put my assets on the hook for his loan without my knowledge. Exactly, and there's more. 3 credit cards, a car lease, and the new commercial space rental, all co-signed by Dana, all leveraging your marital assets as security. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, children were playing in the yard next door, oblivious to the adult complications of the world. She has no idea what she's done, I said finally, and neither does he. The next morning, I met with my attorney and laid out everything we'd found. I want to move quickly, I told her, before they realize what's happening. She reviewed the documents and nodded. We'll file for emergency asset protection today. The loan fraud alone is enough to freeze everything until the divorce is settled. That afternoon, I drove to Harmon Fitness. The gym was sleek and modern, with motivational quotes painted on the walls and Trey's face plastered across the entrance. Inside, 20-somethings in expensive workout gear took selfies between half-hearted sets. Trey spotted me immediately. He was taller in person, with the artificial tan and capped teeth of someone who'd built their career on appearance. He walked over, hand extended, smile perfectly calibrated. You must be Leonard, he said. Dana's mentioned you. I'm sure she has, I replied, not taking his hand. We need to talk. Privately. His smile faltered, but he led me to his office, glass-walled, visible to everyone, but soundproof. What can I do for you? He asked, closing the door. I placed a folder on his desk. This is every financial document connecting you to Dana. Loans, credit cards, leases, all co-signed using our marital assets as security. He picked up the folder cautiously. I don't understand. It's simple. Dana used our marriage to back your business loans. Now we're divorcing, and those guarantees are invalid. The color drained from his face as he flipped through the pages. These are all legitimate business arrangements between Dana and me. Maybe, but the banks approved them based on our combined assets and income. Assets she no longer has access to. He closed the folder. What do you want? Nothing from you. I just thought you should know what's coming. The banks will be calling those loans due very soon. Dana said you were wealthy, he said, voice hardening. That money's not an issue for you. Money's never been the issue, I replied. Trust was. I stood up to leave, but paused at the door. One more thing. When Dana moved out, she took some items of sentimental value to me. Family photos, my father's watch, things money can't replace. He stared at me for a long moment. I'll see what I can do. I nodded and left. The next day, a courier delivered a box to my hotel. Inside were the missing photos, my father's watch, and other personal items. No note included. That same afternoon, my attorney confirmed the emergency asset protection had been granted. All shared assets would remain frozen until the divorce was finalized. I logged into my financial management system and reviewed the alerts. Dana had attempted to access our frozen account 17 times in the past 24 hours. She'd also tried to open a new credit line using our home as collateral. Denied. My phone lit up with her name again. This time I answered. What have you done? She demanded, voice shaking. The bank called in Trey's loans, all of them. They're seizing the equipment tomorrow. That's unfortunate, I said calmly. This is vindictive, Leonard. You're destroying him to get back at me. I'm not doing anything to him. I'm simply protecting myself from fraud. You used our marriage to secure his loans without my knowledge or consent. That's illegal. We can work this out, she said, voice softening suddenly. Come home. We'll talk. 15 years of marriage, and she still thought I could be manipulated that easily. There's nothing to work out, I replied. The divorce will proceed. The fraud investigation will continue, and Trey will learn an expensive lesson about due diligence. I ended the call and blocked her number. That night, I slept better than I had in months. 3 weeks later, I sat in a conference room as Dana and her attorney arrived for our court-ordered mediation. She looked tired, the designer outfit and perfect makeup unable to hide the strain. Her attorney spoke first. My client is willing to be reasonable about the division of assets despite the aggressive tactics employed thus far. My attorney smiled politely. That's good to hear because there's been a development. She slid a document across the table. The bank has completed its fraud investigation. They've determined that Dana forged Leonard's signature on multiple loan documents, using their marital assets as collateral without his knowledge. Dana's attorney skimmed the document, face paling. We'll need time to review this. Of course, my attorney said. But you should know that the bank has already referred the matter to the district attorney. This meeting is a courtesy before criminal charges are filed. Dana stared at me, eyes wide. Criminal charges? Leonard, you can't be serious. I met her gaze steadily. I didn't file the charges, the bank did. That's what happens when you commit loan fraud. Her attorney whispered something in her ear. She shook her head vehemently. If Ms. Bowman is willing to sign our proposed settlement agreement today, my attorney continued, Leonard is prepared to provide a statement to the bank that could mitigate the criminal implications. He won't press charges for the theft of personal property or the unauthorized transfer from the joint account. I watched as Dana's carefully constructed world collapsed. She'd expected anger, jealousy, perhaps even begging. She hadn't expected consequences. The settlement is generous, I said quietly. You keep your yoga studio, which was always profitable. You keep your car and personal belongings. You receive no alimony, and you assume responsibility for the debts you incurred in my name. And Trey? She asked, voice barely audible. Mr. Harmon's financial issues are his own problem, my attorney replied. But without your husband's assets backing those loans, I understand the bank has already begun repossession proceedings. Dana signed the papers without further argument. As we left the conference room, she caught my arm. I never thought you'd fight back like this, she said. You always just went along with everything. That was my choice, I replied, just like this was your choice. I walked away without looking back. A month later, I moved out of the hotel and into a small house near downtown Des Moines. Nothing fancy, just a craftsman with good bones that needed some work. The kind of project that would keep my hands busy and my mind occupied during the evenings. I heard through mutual friends that Dana had moved to Colorado to start over. Her Instagram showed mountain views and inspirational quotes about new beginnings. Trey's gym had been sold to a national chain, and he'd relocated to Miami to expand his brand. Neither of them mentioned what had happened. People rarely advertise their failures. My brother Jason stopped by one Saturday to help me install new cabinets in the kitchen. Heard anything from Dana? He asked as we measured for the hinges. No, I said, and I don't expect to. You know, you could have taken her for everything. The fraud charges alone would have ensured that. I shrugged. What would be the point? She's no longer my problem. We worked in comfortable silence for a while, the rhythm of measuring, cutting, and mounting creating a meditative state. I'm thinking of taking some time off, I said eventually. Maybe drive up to Minnesota, do some fishing at the cabin. Dad would like that, Jason replied. You haven't been there since he passed. That evening, after Jason left, I sat on my back porch with a glass of bourbon. The neighborhood was quiet, with only the occasional dog bark or child's laugh breaking the silence. Different from the upscale community Dana had insisted on. More real somehow. I thought about the last 15 years, how I'd allowed someone else to define my life, my worth. How I'd noticed the signs but chosen to ignore them. How when the moment came, I'd been prepared because some part of me had always known this day would arrive. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt free. The next morning, I called my office and told them I'd be taking 2 weeks off. Then I packed my truck, locked up the house, and headed north. No itinerary, no expectations. Just the open road. And for the first time in years, no invisible ledger of resentments to balance.